Every girl has once dreamed of falling in love with a handsome foreigner, who later becomes royalty and turns her into a princess. But in most cases, this dream never comes true, unless you were actress Grace Kelly in the 1950s. The love story between Grace Kelly and Prince Rainier III of Monaco once captivated the world. It was the first time a Hollywood star made her way into royalty, but it certainly wouldn't be the last, as Meghan Markle would prove decades later. Grace and Rainier seemed like a match made in heaven, a movie star and a playboy prince of a small European principality, becoming the center of global newspaper and magazine headlines. Today, let's look at their marriage story and whether Grace was truly Rainier's first choice. When Grace Kelly met Prince Rainier, she was 26 years old and widely regarded as one of the most glamorous women in America. At the time, Grace Kelly had starred in The Country Girl, which earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1954. She also appeared in High Society and several Alfred Hitchcock classics, including Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, and To Catch a Thief. Her dating history read like a who's who of Hollywood royalty. Before marrying the prince, Grace Kelly had romantic relationships with Clark Gable and Ray Milland, whom she once called the love of her life. She also dated celebrity fashion designer Oleg Cassini, and many believed they would eventually marry. However, her life took an unexpected turn. Grace was reportedly quoted as saying, "I have been through a few unhappy romances. Even though I had become a star, I still felt lost and confused. I didn't want to reach my 30s without knowing where my personal life was headed." No one could have predicted that To Catch a Thief, which Grace co-starred in with Cary Grant in 1955, would be her second-to-last film. Her star power continued to rise, and her beauty and exceptional acting skills kept her in high demand. While To Catch a Thief was filmed in southern France, Paris Match magazine persuaded Grace to visit Monaco for a photo shoot with the young and charming Prince Rainier III. Despite several complications, Grace eventually met the prince at the Monaco Palace on May 6, 1955. It was a moment of fireworks, but the attraction at that stage was one-sided. Rainier was said to have been deeply smitten with Grace from the moment he saw her. However, Grace was dating French actor and war hero Jean-Pierre Ormont at the time and was reportedly polite but aloof toward the prince. Nevertheless, Rainier began to pursue her relentlessly, writing her letters and sending expensive gifts. Eventually, Grace succumbed to Rainier's charm, and the two began a romance through written correspondence. In 1956, after a brief courtship, they became engaged. Before taking Grace to Monaco to prepare for their royal wedding, Rainier even visited the Kelly family in Philadelphia. It is said that shortly before the wedding, Marilyn Monroe wrote Grace Kelly a highly mysterious letter. In it, she wrote, "I'm so happy you found a way out of this industry." This may have hinted that Marilyn felt trapped in Hollywood. However, what Grace may not have known was that Rainier was reportedly very eager to marry a Hollywood star, and Marilyn Monroe was once at the top of his list of desired brides. According to Hollywood writer Liz Smith, when Greek shipping tycoon Aristotle Onassis was doing business in Monaco, he became friends with Rainier and advised him to marry Marilyn Monroe. Everyone was very intrigued by the idea. For about a week, Marilyn Monroe kept pondering the idea, though she laughed it off and continued referring to her possible future husband as the Reindeer Prince. Smith wrote, "Of course, Marilyn Monroe ultimately rejected Prince Rainier's proposal. At the time, she was focused on her career and her first love with Arthur Miller, hoping to gain respect in Hollywood. When Grace Kelly first met Prince Rainier, she may not have realized an interesting fact: he had recently turned Monaco into a tax haven to attract foreign investment and tourists. This move attracted some of the world's wealthiest people, including Aristotle Onassis, who would later marry Jacqueline Kennedy. Before their marriage, Prince Rainier made it clear to Grace's parents that they would need to provide a dowry. Since Grace's family was very wealthy, the prince didn't see paying a large sum of money as part of the deal for the wedding as an issue, but Grace's father, John Kelly, initially refused. He reportedly called the idea of a dowry absurd, saying, "My daughter shouldn't have to pay any man to marry her." He was eventually persuaded to forego the substantial inheritance Grace would receive, around $2 million. In addition, Grace was forced to renounce her American citizenship and promised her fiancé that her Hollywood career would forever be in the past. Being associated with Hollywood didn't seem appropriate for a princess, so after the marriage, Grace never made another film. Of course, decades later, Meghan Markle also gave up her acting career before marrying Prince Harry, so the relationship between actors and royalty hasn't changed much since the 1950s. 2 weeks before the wedding, Grace Kelly set sail from New York to Monaco aboard the Constitution cruise ship with 65 friends and family members. Upon their arrival, they were greeted by 20,000 Monaco residents. The royal wedding, held on April 18, 1956, in Monaco, was one of the most luxurious weddings in the world. The ceremony was divided into 2 parts, a civil ceremony and an intimate religious ceremony. Over 3,000 guests attended the first banquet. At the second banquet, Grace wore her iconic gown, becoming one of the most unforgettable royal brides in history. The wedding was dubbed the wedding of the century, and Grace became the epitome of a fairy tale princess bride. The wedding was broadcast live worldwide, with an audience of 30 million viewers. Grace's wedding dress had a high neckline, several underskirts, antique Brussels lace, and hundreds of small pearls. It took 30 seamstresses 6 weeks to complete the dress. The gown is now part of the collection at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Like all unions, this marriage went through its share of struggles. Rainier knew that his people would not accept a princess who had been a movie star. So, as soon as the wedding was over, the prince banned the screening of all of Grace's films in Monaco. For a woman so passionate about acting, this was a cruel order. The lack of performance caused Grace immense distress, ultimately leading to depression. But that wasn't the only source of her unhappiness. Biographers claim that, in the months following the wedding, Prince Rainier had at least 3 mistresses, and Grace felt humiliated. Due to Rainier's frequent infidelities, Grace Kelly found it difficult to adjust to life as a member of the Monaco royal family. This royal bride was outspoken about her struggles. On one occasion, it's said that Grace even shared her true feelings about Rainier's mistresses with her staff. She reportedly confessed to her hairdresser, "I know my husband is having affairs with other women. It makes me feel frustrated and unhappy." Moreover, Rainier might have been cold in the marriage and showed little interest in Grace's creative pursuits. For example, when Grace held her annual poetry readings, her husband did not attend for several years in a row. What frustrated Grace even more was that she began to realize that she and her husband had almost nothing in common. Rainier was often frowning, busy with business, while Grace became the face of the royal family, beloved by the people of Monaco. Her star power turned the country into a tourist destination, real estate prices soared, and its declining influence was once again on the rise. However, even though Grace truly revitalized Monaco, she did not receive any acknowledgement or reward from the principality. 6 years into the marriage, Grace's life hit rock bottom. After the death of her father, Grace's life was left with more loss. In the following years, she suffered multiple miscarriages. But that wasn't all. Grace Kelly expressed to her husband her desire to break free from the constraints of royal life and revisit the original passion of her acting career. Famous director Alfred Hitchcock, who had worked with Grace on several classic films, invited her to star in his new film Marnie. With her husband's support, Grace excitedly accepted the invitation. However, the residents of Monaco quickly learned about it and opposed their princess playing the role of a thief, forcing her to give up the part. Despite these setbacks, Grace Kelly still appeared in the short film Rearranged, directed by Robert Dawn Helm, where she played herself, with her husband making a special appearance. The 27-minute short film remains preserved in the palace and was released after Grace's death. No matter how far she had moved away from Hollywood, her connection with it would never truly end. Many believed that she had an affair with her to catch a thief co-star, Cary Grant. Some even thought that she continued to date Grant after entering the royal family. Although these shocking rumors were never confirmed, Grant openly expressed his everlasting admiration for Grace without hesitation. Despite the hardships, Grace's marriage to Rainier ultimately lasted 26 years, and they had 3 children, Caroline, Albert, and Stephanie. Unfortunately, on September 13, 1982, Grace passed away in a car accident at the age of 52. That day, Grace Kelly suffered a mild stroke while driving back to Monaco from her country villa in Rock Angel. The incident caused her to lose control of the 1971 Rover P6 3500, resulting in the car crashing on a sharp bend in the road and plunging a 120-foot slope. At the time, her 17-year-old daughter, Stephanie, was in the car, but she was unable to regain control of the vehicle. Grace was rushed to the Monaco hospital with severe head and chest injuries, along with a fractured femur. In the hospital, French doctors made a startling discovery. Their patient not only had a brain hemorrhage, but 2 of them. A CT scan showed that the first hemorrhage occurred before the crash, likely causing the accident. By the way, this stroke also explained the frequent headaches the princess had been complaining about before the accident. The next day, after careful consideration, Prince Rainier made the heartbreaking decision to turn off her life support, as her injuries were too severe to survive. Princess Grace's funeral was held on September 18, 1982, at the Cathedral of Our Lady Immaculate in Monaco. After a solemn requiem mass, she was laid to rest in the Grimaldi family vault. Over 400 guests attended the funeral, including notable figures such as Cary Grant, Nancy Reagan, Danielle Mitterrand, Empress Farah of Iran, and Diana, Princess of Wales. The princess's death was a tremendous blow to the royal family, and Caroline had to step in as Monaco's de facto First Lady in place of her mother. Rainier never remarried, as he was never able to recover from the loss of his beautiful wife. When he passed away in 2005, he was laid to rest beside Grace.